the 43rd Parliament, our second meeting of Status of Women today. Today we're going to be talking about the Supplementary Estimates B, the 2019-20 budget, Vote B under Department of Women, Gender Equality. So today we have both the Honourable Mariam Monsef, who is the Minister for Gender and Women Equality. Welcome, Ms. Monsef. And we also have from our witnesses, Guylaine Roy, who is the Deputy Minister. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, oui? Pour la translation, dans la, where is it, on this side? There's one on there. Okay. So, okay. We will just, you're good? We'll allow that. And we're going to give 10 minutes? Andrian, give me your thumbs up when we're ready to go. Excellent. Okay, so today we also have from the department, we have Guylaine Roy, the Deputy Minister, as well as Nancy Gardner, the Assistant Deputy Minister. And I'm going to pass the floor over to the Minister. You have 10 minutes. With flexibility here.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. Bonjour, Anin, salam alaikum. Congratulations on being appointed to this very important committee in these very important times. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are on unceded Algonquin territory, and I will spend the time you've provided me, Madam Chair, talking a little bit about what my mandate is, talking a bit about Estimates B, and how they help advance gender equality in Canada. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity for some discussion. This committee in the past has helped inform significant policies and programs that have come out of my department. This committee's work on violence against women and girls informed Canada's first federal strategy to address and prevent gender-based violence. I know that folks around this table, like so many parents and youth across the country, are concerned about online violence, and the work that this committee did in its previous iteration to address revenge porn on social media sites provides a really good benchmark for what can happen in terms of significant change when we work together across party lines. And I look forward to continuing the work and the partnership. When the Prime Minister appointed me as the Minister for Women and Gender Equality last fall, he entrusted me with the mission of driving systemic change that promotes a fairer and a more inclusive society for women, for LGBTQ2 and gender diverse peoples. And when I say women, I mean the broad intersections of women, by improving the quality of their life, by working to ensure that this country is safer, and working to ensure that more of us end up around decision-making tables such as this one. To advance systemic change, one of the tools that the Government of Canada has at its disposal, and Canada introduced the tool at Beijing in 1995, is gender-based analysis. We apply an intersectional gendered lens to the implementation, design, and evaluation of our programs and services. What this does is provide a better understanding of the intersections of sex and gender, but also how various other identity factors like rurality, indigeneity, disabilities, age, whether you are a francophone living in an anglophone majority community or vice versa, your immigration status, and who and how you love affect the way that society treats you, but also the barriers and the opportunities that are in the way. That's what GBA Plus allows us to do. We have, over the past 5 years, been able to bring forward significant change. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that change, recognizing too, though, that we have far more to do and we have much more to do. And for every step that we've taken forward and those who have come before us have taken forward, there has been backlash. And that backlash is alive and well here in Canada, but also around the world. And it impacts our ability to progress and achieve equality for all. So right now, I can tell you that over the past 5 years, Canada has moved up 11 places in the World Economic Forum's Gender Equality Index. That's significant. There are plans, programs, laws in place now that didn't exist before. For example, and I know colleagues debated Bill C-16. There's protection for trans individuals and gender non-binary individuals in law now. We have a national housing strategy with a carve-out set aside specifically for women and girls, especially those fleeing violence and abuse. There is a gender violence plan to address and prevent this. We have a comprehensive national action plan to address and prevent human trafficking, a poverty reduction plan. The small but mighty agency that was Status of Women Canada, thanks to the advocacy of so many across the country, is now a full and equal department under the law, with the same authorities, responsibilities, and powers as other departments. It is now the law of the land for a federal budget to have an intersectional gendered lens applied to it. So these are some of the ways that we have made significant progress. We have built on the foundation that those before us have built and need to build upon it further. This year is an important year, Madam Chair. We've discussed it. It's considered a super year for gender equality. It marks 75 years since the United Nations was established. It marks 50 years since the Royal Commission on the Status of Women began its historic and significant work. It marks 25 years since the Platform for Action was agreed upon by the international community, the most comprehensive blueprint for gender equality. 25 years since gender-based analysis started to be applied here within the federal government of Canada. We have 5 years to look back on sustainable development goals, and a recognition too that we have 5 years to go until the next review of the Sustainable Development Goals happen, and 10 years until the Sustainable Development Goals that the international community agreed to are due. So this is an important year, and the way to move forward, I remain convinced, is through partnership and by empowering grassroots and local leadership in communities across the country. One of the ways that we've done that is by enhancing our investments in women's organizations and equality-seeking organizations. Some 630 organizations have received over $250 million over the past 5 years from only my department. That doesn't include other government departments. This allows them to build capacity, to sustain their efforts to address and prevent gender-based violence, to enhance women's economic security, and work to get more women and diverse individuals in positions of power like the ones around this table. 2020 is also significant, Madam Chair, because the calls for justice, the response to the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is due. This is one of those initiatives that didn't exist in the past 5 years. There was no national inquiry. And now we find ourselves as a country working hard to operationalize reconciliation, recognizing that whether the work is to advance Indigenous women and girls' rights and well-being or other women and diverse populations, the work will be difficult. It will require courageous conversations. It will depend on smart partnerships. And I'm really grateful that our constituents have given us the power and the opportunity to be here in Ottawa in this critical moment in time to move our communities and our countries forward. So I'll wrap up there, Madam Chair. I know that you'll be asking me about supplementary estimates, and I'm happy to talk about those adjustments.
Excellent. Anything from the department, or we'll just continue, move forward? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
So I hear you have them for about an hour after me, right?
We do, half an hour after
Be
that.
nice to them.
Are you with us till 12? Ms. Bonsef, you're here till noon? Excellent. So we do have this hour, this committee will be going for an hour and a half with 30 minutes of committee business to follow. So what we'll be doing is we'll be starting our round of questioning. Reminder, it's 6 minutes each to each party to start. And the first round begins with 6 minutes to Raquel. Raquel, you have the floor.
Thank you for being here today. I would like to discuss with you women employed in untraditional sectors. I think something you know much about, and I appreciate your focus in your opening remarks on the importance of gender-based analysis for women, particularly in untraditional sectors. So I was interested to learn, as researching your department, the work you've done, a program your department undertook several years ago called the Mining and Refining for Women Pilot Project. It was a 30-month mentorship project with the goal to retain and advance women employment in non-traditional roles by Teck Resource zinc-led mining operation in Trail, BC. And as you know, women are not well represented in the trades, particularly in mining, and this project funded by your department was looking to help women close that gender equality gap. It received resoundingly positive feedback from the women involved, and I was very encouraged to see that your department takes women in untraditional sectors very seriously. And that this is really in line with your mandate to improve gender equality in Canada, and I appreciate with this program that your department wants women to succeed in mining. But given all the success the Status of Women had with this project, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Teck Frontier mine, that the project presented a massive high-paying employment opportunity for women for local First Nations and women in the mining sector. And of course, it's well understood that the decision on the Teck Frontier mine was to be made by Cabinet and by you this past Tuesday, February 25th. And although we know the project did not go forward and we were given notice 2 days prior, your government had had the proposal since July 2019. So can you provide to the committee the gender-based analysis plus for the Teck Frontier mine project?
Thank you for your question, Raquel, and I wish you all the best in your first term here in Ottawa. I'm sure you're going to make a world of difference. The Teck decision to pull out was their decision, and as we all have been discussing over the past few weeks, it must have been a very difficult decision. I can tell you that they had done an excellent job with their Indigenous consultation, and that is a model for future projects to move forward on. On the initiatives around women's economic security, some of the pilots that you mentioned.
Sorry, Minister, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to know if you can table that report, the gender-based analysis report for the Teck Frontier mine.
So it's available online, what came out of the joint panel. Mm-hmm. It's available online. Anything that comes out of Cabinet, this one isn't one, but anything that comes out of Cabinet is, of course, protected by Cabinet confidence.
For sure. Can you confirm that you did one?
Of course, we do a GBA plus
perfect.
on everything that comes forward to Cabinet.
Okay, perfect.
The Prime Minister has mandated us all to.
Okay, great. So I'd just like to ask, I know you're aware that nearly 10,000 jobs were potentially created in tech, including 14 First Nations. I'm also certain you're aware of the over 200,000 people that remain unemployed in the energy sector since your government took office in 2015. Further, I'm certain you're aware, if not an expert actually, given your many years as Status of Women Minister, of the challenges faced by women in particular in this regard with family breakdown and the tremendous negative impacts these kinds of unemployment numbers have had on people in general, but women specifically. I'm sure you are an expert in this. But not only do we know that women in the energy sector, there are women employed in the energy sector, but for every one energy sector job, 5 other jobs are created. And many of them are in the service industry, which we know are disproportionately represented by women. So I'm confident, given the state of unemployment in our energy sector, that the GBA Plus would show that the Teck Frontier mine would have had a very positive impact on the Alberta community and the energy sector in general. So can you give a brief overview for the committee of what the gender-based analysis had said for Teck Frontier?
So I believe I answered that question already, but I will say that the decision to pull out of
that's
the
for sure. But would it have been a positive impact on women?
The company itself. We have done a gender-based analysis, mm-hmm. and you mentioned some numbers. I think it's really important to have those numbers. Mm-hmm. Over the past 5 years, over 1 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty. And as you know, poverty is sexist, and so women disproportionately benefit from
we have to
those
move on,
government
Minister. There's just a couple minutes left, but I appreciate. I would hope that you could have shared a little bit more specifically of the positive impact this project would have had, given your tremendous mandate from the Prime Minister and in your mandate letter that every proposal that comes before Cabinet has to have a gender-based analysis, which you're responsible for. So I was hoping to have a little bit more from you about the positive impacts or the negative of the tech frontier. But moving on, are you aware of how many of your colleagues have completed the GBA Plus training?
We have the numbers, actually. If, my officials can pull them up. Hundreds of thousands of public servants, political staff, both within the Senate and the House of Commons have taken the training. I encourage anyone who hasn't yet taken the training. It's available online. It's free of charge, of course. And when you're done, you are provided with a certificate.
Yes, I'm currently working through it myself, actually. It's very informative. So just to continue
the number
on.
is 150,000.
150,000 people, including all of your cabinet colleagues?
Parliamentarians, parliamentary staff have completed the GBA Plus
and your cabinet
training.
colleagues, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So what do you feel your cabinet colleagues would have thought of through their gender-based analysis training on energy resource projects like Tech Frontier Mine? Do you feel that they would have thought it was important to have this project and other energy sector projects go forward that your government hasn't approved? I think there's 11 now that have been postponed or thrown out. Do you feel that your government is doing a good enough job to see the impacts of those decisions on women in this sector, considering 200,000 people are unemployed?
Absolutely, we do.
So how do you, are we almost done?
We're almost done, yeah. You're at 10 seconds left, so.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Sure goes fast, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Well, I'll just conclude, Minister. I hope that you can commit that the next time you come to committee that you have a little bit more substantial information for us regarding the impact on women that your government's decisions on Tech Frontier and other energy projects has had.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're now going to move it over to Sonia. Sonia, you have the floor. I recognize you're going to go with Anju, so go
Thank
forward.
you, Chair. I'm just sharing my time with Anju. Thank you, Minister, officials coming today. And thank you, Minister, your leadership and for the last term, and you're doing amazing job. And today I have my question to you. Like many other ridings in the country, my riding in Brampton South, new study conducted by Family Services of Peel noted region of Peel has a rate of human trafficking. It's alarming rate. 62% police reported case in Canada originated by police from Peel area. And I would like to ask you about the national strategy to combat human trafficking that was announced by the former Minister of Public Safety shortly before the last election. Could you tell us more about how the new strategy is enabled to whole of government approach to addressing human trafficking?
Thank you for your question, and I'm glad to see you around this table again. The majority of human trafficking crimes are reported, about 2/3 of them from Ontario. Like many in Ontario, this past Saturday, we observed a day to learn more about human trafficking and empower those who are on the front lines, including survivors, to be able to address and prevent this heinous crime. The National Human Trafficking Strategy was announced by my honorable colleague, the former Public Safety Minister, Ralph Goodale, last summer. And it is a comprehensive strategy. It is based on 4 pillars: prevention, partnerships, prosecution, protection, and then it's got an additional pillar, which makes it, I believe, one of the best plans internationally. That is the empowerment pillar. And I've heard from colleagues around this table, and as we've heard from Canadians across the country, that once those who have been able to get themselves out of the system are ready to get their lives back together, to piece back what's been broken, significant wraparound supports are needed. And so that empowerment pillar is part of what we are trying to do as a federal government to provide those supports and services. The strategy invests significant dollars, so it's fully funded, to empower victims and survivors to regain self-confidence and self-control, to prevent more of these crimes from happening, to better protect those who are vulnerable to trafficking, to prosecute traffickers, and to embrace partnerships with provinces and territories and other organizations to maximize our impact. There's also As of a few months ago, we appointed a new special advisor on human trafficking, who is a retired RCMP officer, and she is working to provide ongoing advice and recommendations to the federal government to bring awareness to human trafficking, both here in Canada, but also internationally as well. One of the questions I asked from one of the frontline service providers was, what is it that makes our daughters, overwhelmingly it's girls and overwhelmingly it's Indigenous women and girls, what is it that makes our daughters so vulnerable to human trafficking? What are you seeing in terms of trends? And she said, often for these girls, the first time that they hear kind words like, I am proud of you, the first time that someone shows interest in them, it is their trafficker. And, I have little girls in my life, as I'm sure many of you do, and hearing that sent chills down my spine. So all this to say, it is preventable. It is complex. Canada has a plan. We are working with our domestic and international partners, and I welcome any work by this committee. I know that several members have expressed interest to help enhance our existing initiatives around human trafficking.
Thank you. Over to Anju.
Thank you for being here, Minister. My question is regarding C5, and being a lawyer myself and having gone through worked in the criminal justice system, I'm very happy our government is reintroducing this bill, reviving it, the bill to provide training to judges. Can you tell us a little more about the bill and what it will achieve? And I also wanted to know if we will be having, as part of the training, sensitizing the judges. Will victims or victims organizations be sitting with the judges during this training so they could sit and bring a better understanding with their experiences navigating the criminal justice system themselves? And this should...
45 seconds to respond.
Okay.
I'm happy that we were able to support Rana Ambrose's bill. As you heard during your travels on coming up with a strategy to prevent and address gender-based violence, a responsive legal and justice system is a key pillar of our work. This bill ensures that survivors of sexual assault have greater confidence in the system. The training that will be provided to aspiring judges will be developed in collaboration with survivors and experts in this work.
Perfect.
Did I do okay there? Time?
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, we're now going to turn the floor over to Andrian. You have 6 minutes.
Bonjour. Vous avez parlé.
Good morning. During your statement, you talked about one of your priorities being improving the economic situation of women, and you talked about how to make improvements. Could you tell me more about that? What are you looking at? What is your government looking at to improve the economic situation of women?
For that excellent question. Women's economic well-being is a key determinant, not the only one, but a key determinant to their vulnerabilities to other hardships, including violence. It's the right thing to do to put women who choose to be out there, as Raquel mentioned, in STEM fields, but also in traditional fields. If you want to work, we should do everything we can to remove barriers from that work. It's the right thing to do, it's fair, but also given the shortage in labor that our country is experiencing, like so many other countries, with declining birth rates and aging populations, it is smart to get as many women into the workforce as possible. One of the ways that we're doing that, of course, is with the Canada Child Benefit. It provides families with a guaranteed income every month. It's means tested, and its purpose is to help families decide how they want to spend that money. whether it's on childcare or other responsibilities. Another is investing directly in childcare spaces. We set aside $7.5 billion for our childcare framework to create some 40,000 spaces. Each province and territory then came to the table and we signed bilateral agreements as to how many more childcare spaces they would add on. And over 20,000 of those spaces have already been created. So that's one of the ways that we're doing that work. We are working to support more women to enter those non-traditional fields because they're high-wage jobs and because it's one of the fastest ways to lift women out of poverty. Initiatives like pilot projects that we've run, my colleague Navdeep Bains is working to encourage more girls and young people to code, for example, are one way to do that. We have a women entrepreneurship strategy too. Right now, only 16.5% of businesses in Canada are women-owned or majority-owned by women. Surely we can do better than that, and we have a strategy to do better, to start up and scale up those women's businesses. And then pay equity. This group includes members who worked hard on advocating for pay equity. We introduced pay equity legislation. One of the significant barriers is the way that we value women's work. By paying women equally for work of equal value, we help to address some of the wage gap that has been so persistent.
Parfait. Mais il y a encore d'autres choses. On parle.
But there are other things as well. We're talking about the motherhood penalty for so many women. There are benefits, but there are women who suffer from that. There are hygiene products, women's hygiene products that cost more. There are other hygiene products that cost more for women than they would for men. And we also talk about jobs in non-traditional sectors. And there's so many other injustices in terms of money. You talked about further encouraging leadership, women's leadership, so that they can start their own businesses, for example. Is that some of the other ways that are being looked at by the government? Yesterday, I met with a women's shelters program, and there are more centers that are helping women, and we need more centers to help women who are going through intimate partner violence. And often we pay for the infrastructure, but not for the services necessarily, or there's just not enough for them. So, but we need more so that women can go to these centers and get out, break that cycle of violence, and then join the workforce. I'd like to hear more about that.
You're absolutely right. Violence is a significant barrier to women achieving their full potential in this country. We've been able to invest in close to 7,000 shelter spaces so far, recognizing that there's still much more work to be done. Our housing strategy has a pillar specifically devoted to building more housing for women. As my colleague Adam Vaughan says, women are often the first to lose affordable housing and the last to gain it. The cost of housing is one that affects their income spending every month. But if you're in an abusive relationship, you're gonna have to make a choice between whether to stay under that roof with an abusive partner or be out in the streets or couch surfing, and that's a difficult choice that no woman should have to make, and we're working to make sure that she has more choices. We've also, in response to your point about the motherhood penalty, motherhood is hard. I see the mothers in my life do what they do, and it's significant work. It is work. I'm sure it's a joy too. I see the joy, but it's a lot of work. And we've heard from fathers and from parents too that taking parental leave is something that we ought to take seriously into consideration, and so we've introduced a new parental leave so that fathers or adoptive parents or same-sex parents can take time in the early days of their newborn's life to spend some time together. And one of the things that does that.
Excellent. Just because, and I hate to cut you off, but due to the fact that it is quite a bit over 6 minutes,
Okay.
and I saw that you're going on to another phrase, when the pen starts twirling, that means you have 10 seconds, okay?
The twirling
so
pen.
when you start
Okay.
seeing this green thing,
Okay.
10 seconds, okay? But thank you. Sorry about that, Andrian. We're going to move it over to Lindsay. You have 6 minutes, and reminder to everybody, pen at 10 seconds.
I'll watch the spinning pen. Thank you, Minister, for being here today, and to your departmental colleagues. I appreciate that. You had talked about violence, harassment, what women face. And I mean, I agree with you. It cannot be tolerated, and I see a lot of it within the workplace. There are reports that 1 in 2 women have experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. I know that Canada was key in putting forward the convention to the International Labour Organization, the C-190, but we haven't moved forward on that. We have not ratified. I understand that working with the provinces and territories is key, so I wanted to know, as Canada needs to be a major player and continue to be a major player on that, what are you doing to work with the provinces and territories to ensure that we can ratify that? And we're not the first now, but be one of the first countries to ratify that convention.
Thank you so much for that question. And that number, 1 in 2, sent shockwaves across the country. 1 in 2 women experiences harassment or gender-based violence at work here in Canada. Parliament, the House of Commons unanimously passed Bill C-65 during our last sitting. And that was a significant step. And the international community applauded Canada for its leadership in putting forward the first plan of its kind to address and prevent gender-based and all forms of harassment in the workplace. That initiative is now being implemented. It includes training, awareness, and it includes accountability measures. There's an opportunity with this Parliament to review its progress. As for relationships with our federal, provincial, and territorial partners, the first FPT, Federal Provincial Territorial meeting that occurred following the 2019 election was the Status of Women gathering. And we have really positive relationships with our provincial and territorial counterparts. We came up for the first time for this 37th or 38th year of this gathering with a strategic plan, a 3-year strategic plan based on a common set of priorities and indicators to measure our progress. And gender-based violence, all forms of gender-based violence, is our number 1 priority with this initiative.
Okay, but specifically the work that you're doing, the actual meetings that you're having with those provinces to get this forward, what are you doing?
So we have to get our own house in order, right? And we have to do that first. Some provinces and territories are way ahead of the federal government with their efforts on advancing gender equality. What we had committed to when we took the patchwork of policies that existed federally and put them all into one plan with Bill C-65, we said that we would bring into force this law within 2 years of royal assent. So this is the year that will be brought into force, and this committee, as well as all of Parliament, has an opportunity to monitor its progress. I think it's important for us to have our own house in order before we join efforts with others, because that often becomes a barrier to partnerships, right? If you haven't stepped up to the plate like others have, they're less likely to want to join the initiative. But I can assure you that this is a priority for our government. As I said before, we cannot afford for women to be unsafe in the workplace. We cannot afford to lose a single drop of talent.
So what part, you've talked about your national action plan to end violence against women. So how much of a part of this convention policies is moving forward in that action plan?
So we are in the process of actually doing just that. We've taken the hundreds of recommendations that have come forward from various reports, conventions, recommendations on the issue of gender-based violence, and my team at Women and Gender Equality have put it all on one beautiful, very large document. And whether it's gender-based violence at home, whether it's gender-based violence in the workplace, at school, online, these are all aspects of the current work that we're doing, but they will definitely inform the work that we're doing with the National Action Plan. We are in early stages for the National Action Plan in terms of developing it and figuring out who our partners are and how we're going to move forward. And again, Madam Chair, I welcome any recommendations from this group, as I have before, to help ensure that that plan is the best possible plan it can be. And it will be an evergreen plan. So we'll continue to improve it because societies change, and so does the nature of gender-based violence.
Okay. Just if I could squeeze one more question in then. So we're seeing NAFTA go through our parliament and the acceptance of that. We had done a lot, and there was a promise from the minister at the time to create a gender chapter within NAFTA. But what we heard quite often from experts was that it's not just about one chapter. I mean, for women, for Indigenous people, you couldn't just limit it to one chapter, that you had to, in much the same way that you... All right. So in much the same way that you had to put a gender-based lens on all legislation, that you would do this for international agreements as well. So what are you doing to move forward on that?
10 seconds. We're way over time, 10 seconds.
Sorry.
To allow you to respond.
Gender, environment, labor are among the considerations we've taken with NAFTA. And there are agreements that have a specific gender chapter while they take all that into account as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Starting with our second round, we're going to, reminder, this is now on to a 5-minute round, and the floor goes to Alice Wong. Go ahead, Alice, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Minister, for coming. And probably my first question is a little bit time sensitive. We're almost in March now. And of course, very soon we'll be celebrating International Women's Day. And the theme of 2020 was only just launched because of you a few days ago. Why is it delayed? Oh, that's my first part. And then also, unfortunately, there have been so many delays with this government getting committee struck to get work done in Parliament. So March 8th, well, I mean, we have always been celebrating the International Women's Day, so long, for so many decades. So I just want to know why the delay in launching this year's theme. It's a bit rushed because we don't have time to really celebrate or get it done.
Thank you for your question, and thank you for your work as a minister. You've moved significant pieces of work forward, and this year's theme, because of you, we will be celebrating it on March 8th, but because this is a very special year for women's rights and equality as a whole, that's the theme for the entire year. So whether it's Women's Day or Gender Equality Week, which Sven, our colleague, pushed forward with Bill 309, whether it's Women's History Month in October or the 16 days of activism that happened throughout until the middle of December, the theme for the entire year is because of you. And we believe that there's some time still to plan and move forward on ensuring that, if there are movers and shakers in your community, as there are in every community, that you want them to be honored through social media or through other means, to encourage the community to nominate and to recognize them using that hashtag. But there are opportunities throughout the entire year. As you can appreciate, an election year means that, there's some things that need to be rebuilt so that we can move forward. But the entire year is going to be a big year of celebrations and honoring those whose hard work and sacrifice allows women like us to enjoy the opportunities that we do.
Yes, and just in response to when our colleagues were talking about women in the workforce, and you did mention that. And one of the things which is close to my heart is the women who are caring pay or unpaid family caregivers. They might be looking after their parents, their grandparents now, because we all live longer, and that directly affects the productivity of the women who are in the workforce, and they have to choose between working full-time or part-time, so on and so forth. So I'm wondering if the government is doing anything, or that's still a gap where we should work on.
That is most definitely a gap that we should all still work on. Unpaid work is usually more often than not caregiving work. It's more often than not provided by women, and it's one of those areas of work that is highly undervalued, and yet our economies and our communities would not be able to survive or thrive without that work. We, in working to bring in pay equity for federally regulated workplaces, are working to do our part within our jurisdiction. We've also introduced leaves, pardon me, for those who are caring for a severely sick loved one in their household, in their family. There is new leaves that allow them to have some compensation. There is, my mom works in this sector too. There is a lot of, as our population ages, dementia is something that caregivers and leaders have asked us to take on, some federal leadership on. And so there's a new dementia strategy that my colleague, Minister Schultz, is working on. It's got, as of budget 2019, $50 million attached to it, so that those who provide some of the most complex forms of care can be reassured that the federal government has a plan to address some of the challenges that they face. The New Horizons for seniors, I know you are very well informed of that. That's to ensure that those loved ones we care for, especially our elders, have opportunities to share their gifts and build relationships and partnerships in their communities. I have a few more things, but I see the green pen.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Okay. That was your 5 minutes. We're now going to move over to Goody. Goody, you have the floor for 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to have to get you to your pen. Minister, always a pleasure to have you and your officials here. The work that you've done and the team has done in the last 5 years, going from status of women to now full-blown department of wage, the increase in the budgets and the work that's being done on the ground, I know it's felt in my riding. As you've heard me say many, many times, and many of my colleagues have heard me say, I've got a very large rural riding, a land mass bigger than Switzerland with lots of tiny, tiny, beautiful communities. And I know I have 4 small status of women's groups in rural areas in Port aux Basques, in Stephenville, and Corner Brook, and Port Saunders. And there you've got people with probably 1 or 2 paid positions, the rest volunteers doing great work on the ground. So I wanted to bring up the rural because you are also the minister responsible for rural economic development. And I'd just like your comments a bit on how the two interact, women and women in rural areas. I know our government has a huge commitment on broadband and the initiatives there and how you see them interacting, women and rural women.
Thank you so much for your question, and I'm glad that the Prime Minister has partnered me up with you, Goody. One of the things, especially those of us who come from rural communities or mixed rural-urban communities, are tasked with, just by the nature of this beautiful country, is we have to work that much harder and be that much louder and that much more prepared to ensure that the perspective of rural Canadians is heard and understood. And that's part of GBA Plus as well, but we are working to strengthen that lens. So when, Goody, you say a land mass bigger than Switzerland is my riding, that's a really smart way, just by conversation, to help demonstrate that rural lens. Budget 2019 included an investment for broadband. It included for high-speed internet. It included investments through CRTC. It included investments to move forward with low Earth orbit satellites, LEOs, for those particularly remote communities. And it also included funding through the Universal Broadband Fund, funding that we hope to roll out in the coming months so that communities across Canada can be connected further to high-speed internet. I believe it's an essential service. It's not a luxury to have access to high-speed internet, and Canadians have told us that. For the first time, we have a rural economic strategy that tells us that the number one priority for rural Canadians is connectivity. For the first time, we have a connectivity plan that says by 2030, we're going to connect 100% of communities in Canada to high-speed internet. And the standard we're using is 50/10. Why that's important to the work of this committee and that gendered lens here. If she's not able to, log online and see what services exist for her, she's less likely to leave an abusive relationship. If she doesn't have access to high-speed internet, she is less likely to take the great gift that she has as a woman entrepreneur and expand upon it. If she doesn't have the ability to FaceTime her grandkids and her loved ones, then she's less likely as a grandparent to feel connected to them. And those feelings of isolation can be prevented through technology. Excuse me. The other gendered lens here too is who develops these technologies, right? Right now, about 26% of those who are in tech sector are women. And that sector is experiencing significant labor shortages. And it's the one that needs innovation to get ahead of everybody else. We want Canada to be number one in this sector. And yet, that 26% are often paid 26% less than their male counterparts for work of equal value. So there's definitely a gendered lens. The more Canadians we connect, the greater economic prosperity we're able to share, but the greater safety and security we will also be able to add to their lives as well.
Thank you, Minister. I'm just going to ask you a quick question before I get the pen. When you refer to GBA Plus, how are you and your other ministers going to make sure that the plus, what are you going to encompass in the plus? Are you making sure that we're looking at people in rural communities or Indigenous communities or Inuit communities or women of color and, of course, persons living with disabilities?
The short answer is yes. We do need to strengthen all the lenses that you mentioned, but also create a culture and continue to strengthen that culture here within our government and public service, that it becomes an automatic, we're going to apply a GBA at the outset and at the end and throughout the process. So turning it into a cultural norm is our key challenge.
Excellent. I'm just going to ask Ms. Y and Ms. Monsef, would we be able to keep you for 3 more minutes so that we can complete this entire round? Have thumbs up to that. I'm going to pass the floor back over to Raquel. Raquel, you have 5.
Okay. Thank you, Minister, for being here again. Minister, I just want to share a little bit of personal background with you about me. I grew up in rural Manitoba to a town of about 3,000 retired farmers. And when I graduated high school, if the men weren't going to work on their farms or cattle ranchers or going to university, they went to Alberta to work in the trades there and bring home a lot of income for their families. And so, of course, that isn't happening anymore, and it's of grave concern to me. But also my fiance, he works for Manitoba Hydro. Many men I grew up with went on to work with Manitoba Hydro. So, Minister, I wanted to ask you about some troubling remarks concerning the gender-based analysis by the Prime Minister in Argentina and the G20. He mentioned, and I quote, "What does a gender lens have to do with building this new highway or this new pipeline or something? There are gender impacts when you bring construction workers into a rural area. There are social impacts because they're mostly male construction workers." So now you can understand, particularly for me, as my fiance is one of those guys who goes into rural areas, and I know many of them in my riding as well. We have many men and women in the trades that go into these rural areas away from their families. They used to go to Alberta. They no longer have that opportunity. But I'm just wondering if you agree with the Prime Minister and his implication that men who go into rural areas have negative implications on women.
Thank you for sharing that very personal story, and I wish you all the best with your partnership. You had asked me early on about the GBA Plus on resource development projects. One of the things that we take into consideration now, and especially with the new Impact Assessment Act that was passed last year in the House of Commons, is the calls for justice that came from the inquiry around missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. There you'll find some clarity in terms of where that gendered analysis is coming from. The Prime Minister made his remarks based on facts. And we also know that those men who go into those isolated communities experience their own challenges. And part of GBA Plus is recognizing those challenges for all genders, not just women, and working to address them.
So do you feel that the impact with men working in rural areas, building the infrastructure of our country, do you feel that the negative impacts of that you're talking about exceed the positive impacts, and is that why your government isn't wanting to support projects like Tech Frontier or other energy sector projects?
So the premise of that question I disagree with, because we have moved
Do the
forward
negative impacts
with
outweigh the
resource
positive
development
impacts
projects.
of men working in rural areas?
And we have to ensure that the positive
speaking around the question a
benefit.
little bit.
Okay,
Minister.
one moment. What I'm going to do, and I think everybody knows this, if we could just stop the time for a moment. Just stop. What I will be doing in this committee is I do believe it is the time of the questionnaire. That is my philosophy on this, and as the chair, I'll take that. I do recognize that the opportunity to always respond, but I'd ask that we don't speak over one another time, and then stop, clock back on. Go ahead.
That's really, actually, I'd like to move a motion, Chair.
Motion.
Just in reference to my first question, given that the minister confirmed that her cabinet colleagues, including the Prime Minister, have all completed the gender-based analysis plus training, I move that the committee request that the Minister of Women and Gender Equality table the GBA plus completion certificates of her cabinet with the committee.
We had always stopped. Yeah, just stop the time. Yep, go ahead. Any questions on this motion or any conversation on this motion? Yeah, we've got, the time is called. Okay, go ahead.
And I'll speak slowly for Adrienne as well, just so the
Et
translation
j'aimerais
comes
l'avoir
through.
évidemment, si c'est possible.
One moment. The motion's going to be reread, and so the motion will come out. So once I address you, then turn on your mics, okay? So the only person that will address you to start talking will be me.
Great.
Go ahead, Raquel.
Given that the minister confirms that her cabinet colleagues, including the Prime Minister, have all completed the gender-based analysis plus training, I move that the committee request that the Minister of Women and Gender Equality table the GBA plus completion certificates of all of her cabinet colleagues with the committee.
Any discussion from this motion? Sonia, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, can we take just a 3-minute suspension? Yes.
We'll suspend for 2 minutes. I'm asking the committee to reconvene. You can. Motion on the floor. Okay, so Goody, you have the floor.
I'd like to adjourn debate. We're not quite sure if the department is actually legally allowed to disclose that information, so we'd like to adjourn debate on
Adjourn
that.
is non-motion. It's
Motion.
non-debatable. Debate done. So the question is, all those in favor of adjourning debate? All those in favor? All those not in favor? Motion defeated. Okay, so not motion accepted. Sorry, motion accepted. So the debate will be adjourned on this. So we will not continue with that. Looking at this, we have now taken up the time of all the questioning and things like that. What I'm looking at the time because I recognize they moved to adjourn debate. So we've got Andrea and Sam. I'm just looking at where we're at. Selma for line, and I'm looking at the time. Selma, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Then we'll go to Andrian for 2.5, Lindsay for 2.5, and then I have one final question from the chair. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for coming before the committee, and I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for all the work which you have done in the last many years on behalf of my constituents. Wanted to pass it on because we feel the difference in our riding. You have talked in your opening remarks about the National Housing Strategy, and this is one of a issue which I hear always from my constituents because access to affordable housing is a big issue in my riding. So, Minister, one of the great things this government has done is addressing the housing crisis in a sustained way that no other government has done in at least half a century. Thanks to the National Housing Strategy, the federal government is reinvesting in housing and establishing itself as a partner on housing for most of the next decade. I want to ask you a couple of questions on that as it relates to women. First, one of the strategy's goal is to make sure that at least 25% of National Housing Strategy investments go to projects specifically for women, girls, and their families. So do you know where the government is in achieving this goal of 25%?
Thank you, and I'm grateful for your leadership too. It's nice to have you back around this table, and I saw that you had been elected as chair of the Citizenship Committee. I wish you all the best on that important work. The housing strategies carve out, our commitment was 25% for women and their children, and CMHC is now at about 29%. Their target is 33%. It also, that strategy includes legislating, and I was happy to speak to it in the House of Commons, that access to affordable housing is a human right. And in addition to that, we are in the process of working to ensure that there's a housing advocate that is working to monitor, ensure that every parliament is accountable and is meeting those targets.
Another question on the same topic relates to the historic legislation this government signed into law last June in the 42nd Parliament, when we recognized that every Canadian has the right to access safe, affordable housing. So could you please explain us more about how this will help marginalized communities, especially women and young girls?
The housing strategy allowed us to, get our house in order, much like other federal strategies that we put forward, and then legislating housing as a human right was our way of, first of all, responding to what advocates had been asking for. Minister Duclos, the minister who did the outreach across the country on this, and Adam Vaughan as his parliamentary secretary, came back and said, this is what we've heard, that we need to address affordability, we need to address supply, and then we need to make sure that it's not just the the federal government in 2015 till whenever that is working to uphold this. We need to make sure that every parliament recognizes access and the dignity that comes with a safe roof over one's head as a human right. So legislating that and also doing the back end work of having a strategy in place, building and repairing existing affordable units, focusing on women, focusing on seniors, on veterans, on persons with disabilities. Those are all things that we did on the back end to get to legislating it as a human right.
My last question is I represent a riding where there are a lot of organizations which are helping advance gender equality, and especially the new immigrant women of color. So what efforts have been done to increase to do the capacity building of those organizations so that they can continue doing the important work which they are doing?
I'm a product of those organizations doing the good work that they do. I've benefited from those services, and I know we all have loved ones or directly have benefited from those services. I spoke in my opening remarks about the backlash that there is to our progress to advance equality. That backlash can be contained and can be faced best by investing within those local organizations on the ground who know the communities, who know the solutions, who know the shortcuts, and who are able to enhance the ability of every dollar.
Excellent.
And we've done that.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Okay, point of orders on the floor.
Yeah, I just want to raise with the committee my disappointment that although I feel we had a productive discussion, Minister, given that you've passed legislation of GBAs, it's in your mandate letter from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister himself has talked about this on the national level, and it's one of your four main pillars of your own mandate. I do feel that it is very disappointing that for Canadians that you cannot put forward which members of cabinet have done GBA analysis. It's just very disappointing.
We just need to know if this is a point of order or an opinion.
That's my point of order.
Fantastic. Okay. Yes, Andréane?
Oui, pardon, je voulais savoir effectivement.
Yes. I wanted to see whether it was a point of order because I wasn't sure. I don't think it was her time to speak. I was saying I wanted to know.
So in a situation in committee, if a point of order is brought forward, the committee stops and it goes on to the point of order at that time. The decision of whether it is debate or if it's an opinion or if it's something to do with procedural is the discussion that we come when it comes to what the decision of the chair would be. It was not going into debate. It was a stated opinion, but did not go into the procedures. So and she finished her statement. Okay, but looking at the time. And with the request, as I had requested, we still had a couple more minutes. Andréane, you have 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Ministre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, my colleague talked about caregivers and the help and support they need. I talked about maternity as well. But, women spend a lot of times with their families, men as well. So there's time given for that and all the volunteer work that is being done. I come from the community sector. I worked a lot on these issues on poverty, on caregivers and all the work women do. But what measures is the government looking at to support all of that work, that invisible work? Because if we want specific, concrete social programs, credits to help these people, you need to really look at what you can do concretely. So I think there are issues that should be put back, or that's an issue that should be put back in the long-form census. Of what is your department doing towards that?
Thank you so much for that excellent question. On the census, we brought back the long-form census. It was actually our first act as a cabinet. And the new census will be rolling out in 2021. One of the things that my department has worked very closely with Minister Bain's department and Stats Canada is to create a portal based on diversity and inclusion data so that we can get those different stories and the intersecting identities. So this is new, and this is providing, once you start collecting the data, then you can measure it. Unless you measure it, it won't count, and we cannot measure progress on addressing that unpaid care work and the invisible work. So that's been step one. Step two has been to recognize that for so many people, to care for their loved ones is an honor. and to support them in their ability to do that. So a new EI caregivers benefit has allowed for that additional support to be provided, as well as encouraging men to take leave, fathers to take leave, so that we start to change social norms as well. There are men in my community who are thrilled that they can take up to 5 weeks to be with their newborns, but there's so much work to be done on this particular area of care work and unpaid care work, and we will be doing more research and more work on it. And again, I invite any and welcome any guidance from this committee to support that work.
Excellent. Lindsay, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you for that. You had been talking about housing and the importance of housing, and I'm glad to hear that the government believes it is a human right, because I agree with that for sure. In my community in London, Ontario, Indigenous people suffer about 30 to 40% of homelessness, which is very, very high. And I wonder, for example, there are 3 Indigenous housing groups or housing places, sorry, that are actually, they're at the end of their 25-year agreements. They are now selling off properties because they can't afford to continue on to provide that housing is needed. So these are all coming together as a huge crisis that a lot of communities are facing. The PBO also announced, or they did a report in 2019 that said that all of these initiatives that the government was bringing forward, it wasn't actually clear that any of that was doing any good to help reduce the prevalence of house, or the prevalence and need of housing. It wasn't increasing the actual number of housing units. It wasn't fulfilling the need that was required by Canadians in need of affordable housing. So if you'd like to address that issue, I'd appreciate it, especially as it relates to Indigenous housing.
1 minute left.
So the most recent numbers that we have is over 1 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty over the past 4 years or so, and over 1 million families have access to a safe and affordable roof that they didn't before 2015.
How do you explain then the PBO's numbers and how it's actually not happening?
The National Housing Strategy is a 10-year plan with very concrete goals around eliminating homelessness, adding to the stock of affordable housing and repairing existing housing, and also renewing agreements around cooperatives to make sure that what's been affordable stays affordable. One of the additions to the housing strategy, which will come into effect this April, is the portable housing benefit that gives up to $2,400 a month for Ontarians. It's a subsidy that goes to the individual as opposed to the housing provider itself, so that you can choose to live in any community and you would pay about $200 or so less every month on the cost of housing. I'd love to have a conversation offline with you about how we can help your community to access funding through the National Housing Strategy if they're interested.
Excellent. So what I'm looking at the time, and on behalf of the committee, I'd very much like to thank Minister Monsef as well as Guylaine Roy for joining us. We're going to take about 30 seconds so that we can welcome up to the table Lisa Smiley, Danielle Belanger, and Suzanne Cooper. And thank you once again to our others. And Nancy, if you want to just do what you got to do, we're going to suspend for about 30 seconds. Returns to the table, please. If we could have everybody return to the table so that we can get started. No, we're not in camera. No. Okay. Once everybody has their seats, that's wonderful. We're going to actually be starting this. I know that. Oh, Gulan's got. Oh, you don't have yours. Oh no. We need to make sure that we have a card, if that's okay, for Suzanne. Or no, Suzanne's got hers. So Danielle Belanger's card. That's what we're looking for. Okay. If I could have everybody please take their seats on the government. We need to have quorum here, so if you guys could take your seats. Lynn's wonderful. We're going to begin once again. We're going to continue with this round of questioning. We are starting off with. Did you get questions? That's what we thought. So we're going through this. We're going to start round 3. We're going to start. Do you want me to go back to that? What we're going to do is there was a little bit of an error on this chair's part. I would like to move the floor back over to Selma. Selma, you have your time to ask questions, and then we'll go back to the Conservatives back and forth. So from the second round, you did not have an opportunity to ask your questions. That was my mistake. I overlooked you.
No, I did.
She did. Okay. That's why. No, that's why. That's why I just said to you. I said, "Did I ask you the questions?" And you said no.
Oh, I thought maybe you were asking that. I was
goodness
asking
gracious!
you something.
Well, Selma, I'm taking it all back. You're not getting it. Okay, wonderful. So we're going to be starting this. Just to let you know, we'll be going to Conservative, Liberal, and then we'll end off with Bloc NDP. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Alice. Alice, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So my question is about the estimate. So welcome again. The two deputy ministers, assistant deputy minister who were here before, and welcome Danielle. Danielle was here, right? Lisa was not. So anyway, I've met you all in my former life, Anyway, so my question is about the grants and contribution. Now, looking at 5B, $300,000 from the ministerial operation budget has been moved into grants and contributions. Am I right? Okay, so first of all, can you provide a more in-depth, how specifically this increase in grant funding is to be spent or has been spent? What specific organizations or programs? So again, the other thing is about the rationale behind it. Why is it moving from the operating budget to the grants and contributions?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a very direct answer. So the $300,000 was in operating budget, as you said. Moving that money into grants and contributions allowed us to do programming for specific projects related to men and boys. Because in operating dollars, you can't actually do grants and contribution programming, as you know. Yeah. So this allowed us to do projects on the ground to support some of the work that we talked about yesterday related to men and boys. So there's 4 projects that we were working on, and I can list a few of them. But the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters, some of the projects were actually used to promote awareness of gender-based violence and healthy masculinity. Next Generation Men was another project that we supported.
And where is the Next Generation Men? Where is it? In which province, or is across the nation?
That's the University of Calgary.
Okay.
It's working with the University of Calgary.
Okay.
And so those projects were used to actually support projects related to men and building awareness and healthy masculinity.
So that means all that money is only spent in the province of Alberta.
No, there's other projects as well that we were supporting. Those were the only 2 that we were just talking about. Catalyst was another project, and Foxy Smash. Now I'm just looking at this project was in the north, related to engaging Indigenous youth, to particularly young men and boys, on gender equality issues. So the issues were very, very relevant in that part of the country, and so a project was developed to support that work.
Okay, are any of the programs targeted senior men like elderly men? What I mean is,
That's a very good question. None of the projects that we actually just spoke about were specifically working with senior men, but engaging.
Seniors are close to my heart, right?
Yes, I know. I know that. And I think when we did the Men and Boys strategy, there were 11 roundtables that took place, and it wasn't specifically focused on young men, but people from all segments of society were part of those roundtables, and various issues were raised, as the minister spoke about earlier, not only impacting women, but for young men, senior men. Some of the issues that actually impact them from a gender-based analysis plus were spoken about through those roundtables. But these specific projects were not focused on senior men.
Yeah, because culturally, I can speak from my past experience meeting some of the stakeholders that sometimes, for people, in certain cultures, it's still male dominated.
Yes.
And very often, so that has created a kind of, I don't know how to name it, I wouldn't say that it will abuse, but what I mean is it's the kind of authority over the women in their family. So that's why I want to ask if any cultural sensitive elements are included.
There's a number of projects that we have supported that related not only to leadership, economic empowerment, violence, that does focus on looking at some of the imbalances that are created in society, and making sure that we're actually addressing those imbalances in the projects that we support. And we've got many specific examples of increasing capacity of organizations to support women, to help them build their empowerment, or to address some of the imbalances related to maybe inequities is the right word in society. So we can talk about that a little bit as well. Karen has given me a pen.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy, for understanding the way I behave.
Yes.
So I don't have any more time.
We're at 3 minutes or 30 seconds left.
3 seconds. Thank you very much.
Goody, the floor is to you for 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I still think we need to get you a bigger pen. We'll work on that. Thank you for being here, ladies, and thank you again for the work that you do. You know that rural is a passion for me, and I know our programs are reaching out into small rural communities, and I also know that in small rural communities, a contribution of a small amount can go so much. I remember having meeting with one of my status of women's groups, and it was a small amount of money. I think it was like $15,000 or $20,000, and the chair of the board actually cried. And I think we need to focus on that going forward. That it's not all about the $1 million projects. It's the small numbers on the ground that really make a difference, right? So thanks for doing that, and keep doing that when you review all the applications that come in. I want to get back to the GBA Plus. So can you tell me a little bit about how you see that's going to be applied and developed when you look at applications, when you look at funding going forward? Right?
I'll start that, and I'm going to ask Suzanne to actually add a little bit. So the minister mentioned earlier, and I think we mentioned the last time we were here, the role and the use of GBA Plus has expanded so much over the last number of years. We are now required, in terms of cabinet submissions as well as Treasury Board submissions, to actually have a gender-based analysis as part of the actual submission. Gender budgeting, obviously, is another important aspect that has happened over the last couple of years as well. The last budget had a gender chapter, specifically looking at all of the initiatives that were part of that budget. There was a gender-based analysis done on every single initiative that was part of the budget. So I think we've definitely moved forward in terms of our analysis. The intersectionality piece is something that's been mentioned quite a bit in this committee, looking at the rurality, indigeneity, visible minorities, persons with disabilities, all aspects to a program has to be taken into account when you're actually developing the program now. So I think that's we've expanded for sure in the work that we've done. Are there more things that we can do? Absolutely. I will turn it to Suzanne, because as we're developing our federal gender equality plan, the gender-based analysis is a big part of that.
Sure. Thanks. Yes, so one of the things that we're working on and the minister has been mandated to do is to develop a federal plan on gender equality. So the purpose of that plan is to basically have a whole of government approach to how we're going to reach the objectives laid out in the gender results framework, which Lisa talked to you about on Tuesday. As part of that, we're also looking to strengthen GBA+. As Nancy said, we've made a lot of progress, but we know through, for example, surveys with other departments that it's not evenly applied necessarily, that there's some challenges related to data, which we talked about on Tuesday as well. So we're working toward how can we fill in those gaps to make sure that we definitely have the intersectional analysis that we need for the policy and program cycles.
Anything else, ladies? And speaking of data, how do we make sure that we are collecting the proper data across all government departments and make sure that they are applying the lens, but also get that data that's so important to the decisions that you need to make and the department needs to make?
So over the past few years, we've invested tens of millions of dollars in getting new data. So with budget 2016, we invested $1.5 million per year to get the data needed for GBA+. With our GBV strategy, we invested over $30 million in data. And then with budget 2018, another $5 million in data. And how we ensure that it's the right data, we develop our data plans, our surveys in collaboration with community-based organizations, survivors, academics. So we bring together expertise to make sure that we're identifying the data gaps and that we're investing our money in the right kinds of data that people need.
Great. So am I correct in assuming that prior to 2015 there was very little data being collected?
In terms of data on a whole,
yes.
Related to gender, there were pockets of data. What I can say is prior to 2015, there was no focused research team at Status of Women to sort of shepherd this data collection.
Okay, great. Thank you for your work.
I'm just looking at the time and recognizing that there's a few questions and we do have to get to committee business. We're at 12:21 with 9 minutes left. I'm taking up all of the time right now. I'm going to reduce the time to 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute. Okay, and that provides everybody the equal amount of time. Raquel, are you ready to take the floor, you and Alice?
I am.
Okay, we're going to go over to 3 minutes. We have to reduce that
Sure.
time. 3 minutes in total.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think you were here last time, Susan, right? Okay, well, nice to meet you. Just wanted to actually follow up on the questions I asked the committee last time, just a little bit more in depth. As you know, I'm a member of Parliament from Manitoba. And Susan, just to loop you in, as you know, Manitoba has the highest percentage of violence against women. We also have one of the highest Indigenous populations, mostly young, one of the fastest growing populations in Manitoba. And we have the highest child apprehension rate. I think it was over 12,000, which is highest in the world. So we're facing significant issues in our female population in Manitoba. And I had asked last Tuesday of the department, of the $66 million in grants and contributions, how much is provided to Manitoba? I know we only have 4% of the population, which is really only $2.64 million. But given that we have higher needs, I would say, in this regard, just want to see if you have any more information. If you don't have the exact number, that's fine. But if you can even provide for me so I can let my constituents know, what are some of the programs that your department makes available to women in Manitoba?
So thank you for the question. We are looking at figuring out, making sure that we're going to come back in terms of the amount of resources that are going to Manitoba in all of the areas. We've definitely seen at our quick glance, there are projects in Manitoba in all of the work that we're doing. So there's projects in the women's program, projects for GBV, as well as LGBTQ2. So we can come back with exact numbers and dollar figures that would be given to you in terms of that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay,
and
great.
Just actually any information I can provide to constituents about the programs you offer, just even descriptions or who they can call. Excellent. That would just be great as a parliamentarian to be able to offer that.
Oh, we would absolutely be happy to do that. And there are folks that work in our Western region that do visits and outreach and in all of the provinces and territories. So that would be no problem.
Perfect. And I'll just wrap up with one comment. I know I mentioned this last time. I know you have your Edmonton office that serves Manitoba. I just want to encourage you to consider maybe opening a small office in Manitoba, given our high needs.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Have you guys worked this out, Ken? So,
if
Ken
anybody-
and Sonia, Ken would like to speak a little bit.
Can I? Sure.
We're going to throw the floor to Ken. He's really excited. Go for it.
Thank you. Good meeting, Madam Chair. I used to work at the Metro Vancouver Transportation Authority, and we did roads, but we also did public transit. And almost by accident, we stumbled into a process where we used what we called a multiple account evaluation on the services that were offered. And we didn't specifically have a gender-based analysis, but we did, for instance, put in a process whereby a bus operator was given permission to stop in between stops to get a woman as close as possible to her home. And this is an example of a lens through which I think a lot of our infrastructure investments should be put, and I'm asking whether or not, in fact, a gender-based analysis is being used when we make decisions on what kind of infrastructure to support.
So thank you for the question. That is an excellent example of a gender-based analysis approach to the work that you did, for sure. So as I said earlier, any programming that's coming coming into place, I guess, through memorandums to cabinet, so any new programs that are being developed, there's a requirement for a gender-based analysis piece of work to be done on all of those initiatives, which would allow us to take a really close look at how anything that's going to be introduced would have an impact, not only from a gender perspective, but from the intersectionality piece. So with persons with disabilities, that would be an excellent example in terms of the work that you did on that project to see how that would impact persons with disabilities. So for us, all new initiatives that are going through cabinet are required to have a GBA plus lens put on them.
You're good? You've got 1 minute exact. Yeah.
1 minute is now. Okay. My riding is Brampton South. Lots of startups, lots of women entrepreneurs want to thrive. So is there any special grants are available for, can you elaborate on that?
So I'm going to start on this in terms of the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy, and I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne a little bit to talk about the strategy. But the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy was introduced, as Minister Monsef spoke about earlier, and the amount of money that's available for the Entrepreneurship Strategy is a total of $2 billion. There was a recent, I think it was last year, call for proposal process that was announced by the department responsible for the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy to enable women entrepreneurs to access funding to advance their small business. I can get a little bit more detail. Suzanne, do you want to?
Oh, 3 minutes here. Okay.
Okay.
But if that information, if you wouldn't mind sending that to us, that would be very beneficial as well. I'm going to pass it over 1 minute to Andrea.
Oui, merci. Thank you. So you already talked about this a little bit, but I only have a little bit of time, but I'd like to hear about it again. So the funds provided for the status of women, somebody said that it was almost $300,000, so I'd like to hear what that money was for.
So the $300,000, we received money in operating dollars, which is money that we can use to have contracts with organizations or to operate within our own organization to hire people, hire staff. But what we wanted to do is use that money for community organizations to do work in the community, specifically for this particular fund related to men and boys. So the $300,000 was used to actually support contribution and grant agreements with organizations to allow them to do the work at the community level, as opposed to us doing the work in the department.
Final question, 1 minute.
So we were talking a lot about gender equality and the advancement of that. Absolutely. The minister addressed a bit about pay equity and the legislation there. However, at current rates, it looks to be a very, very long time that we will actually achieve it, 200 years or so. So as Canadian women earn about 32% less racialized equity-seeking groups, they earn even less than that. What are the timelines that you're looking at to ensure that we get there faster than the 200 years?
Pay equity, yeah. Oh, 20 seconds. So you know that we are working on the, can't even look at anything. The pay equity regime at Section Labor, that's leading on that, and I know that they're looking at making amendments to the Employment Equity Act, for example. One of our roles is to work with, is it not working?
Juste répéter parce qu'on l'interprète n'a pas entendu.
Please repeat because the interpreter wasn't able to hear a little bit.
We work closely, of course, with Labor and ESTC to ensure that we provide them with the research and the gender expertise to make sure that we're addressing those issues, but this is really under the purview of Labor.
Thank you very much. And once again, I'd like to thank you. But before we move forward, we have the vote on SUPS-B. So I'm going to, if everybody could just pay, shall vote 5B under Department for Women and Gender Equality in the amount of $262,865. Carry. All those in favor? All those not in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I would once again like to thank Nancy, Lisa. Shall I one more vote, golly D. Shall I report the supplementary estimates B to the House? All those in favor? Wonderful. Although, Andriana, just that I report this to the House. This is just a vote that I report it to the House. Yes?
Juste une petite question.
A quick question. Is it possible to speak a little bit less quickly? It would help the interpreters. It would give them time to be able to interpret just a little bit. Thank you.
But finally, shall I report the supplementary estimates to the House? All of those in favor? Wonderful. Thank you very much once again to Nancy, Lisa, Suzanne, and Danielle. This has been a great hour and a half. We're going to suspend for about 2 minutes. Any of the MPs who have not had the opportunity to get their lunch, grab it, and then we'll go in camera. Reminder, we must exit the room. There's one staff per person and one person per parliamentary caucus that's allowed to be here. Everybody else must exit. Suspended.
you.